And the more levels it goes up, the worse it gets.
You're not filming it, so.
I
I don't reflect live.
Don't worry. I want it for my own, like, my portfolio. Yeah. One of my SSA was saying I need to start building that shit.
I know.
I'll delete it if anything.
All right.
I don't reflect light, so you're fine. It's easy.
So the objective here is for everybody to get the information they need to do what again, Brent? What are we trying to do?
Summarize. Yeah, we're going to do, this is for our requirements interviews debriefing, where we summarize all the information that we've gained throughout this thing.
So we're actually going to do 2 assignments today?
713.
Well,
we're going to do the interview, and then are we not doing the debrief?
The debrief is a summary that everybody writes.
Oh, we got to write.
Yeah.
Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What assignment? 7-1 something.
We have to
716.
write it, or I mean, I made a list of questions. I was planning on dropping that in the box, or do you want us to physically write something of quality, like a paragraph?
Oh, okay, so 716.
It had a minimum, it's like 400 or 500 word minimum length.
Brent, we feel you're working against us here.
All right.
Oh.
Hey, don't shoot the messenger.
Oh.
I think this should count as 715 and 716.
I agree.
And we dropped the PDF in the box. I
thought that's
something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I thought we were going to do.
So 715, the people sitting out here are supposed to be interviewing the people up there about what?
About, now, we
This was
work for this
online.
company, so who's the CIO?
Gadgets.
We all work for him. All of
Yeah.
us
So you
interview.
guys are all employees?
Yes.
No.
No.
They're contractors.
Consultants.
No, we didn't hire. You're an
Why would
outside company, so
No.
you're a contractor.
No. We're creating the RFP to send to outside contractors.
I think,
So why-
I agree with Dave. I think you're going to find it,
This
because
isn't
I
it.
think,
From what I gathered on this, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. This is a information gathering where the RFP has already been put out.
No.
And
We're
you have-
creating the RFP. The final project is writing the RFP.
I think it's writing the response to the RFP.
Yeah, we already did the RFP.
Right.
That's what I
So
thought.
let's clarify it, Brent. These guys will like you a lot better if you clarify this.
Yeah, I thought we were
Says
doing
interview.
Yeah, and if you work for us, you're getting closer to getting fired. Right?
Yeah.
The assignment says
But when
interview
would
the
you ever
members
see
of the executive committee to gather information from them about the RFP.
About the RFP. Now, I initially thought like what you're saying. I went on the website, did that little tool thing, and I asked the CIO about budget. And it said, one of the members of the executive committee, who is your boss, the CIO, I can't remember his name, James something, says the budget should be this. So then I started looking, and I took a look at all the other at the rest of the assignments, and that's what it looked like. Was we're some peon that has to prepare this RFP for Gadgets Inc. to send out to all these organizations
So this is information gathering for the RFP.
for the
That seems
RFP.
kind of backwards.
To create a clear RFP.
Put together a proposal.
No.
So what's
Unless
No, we're putting together a request for a proposal. So we're requesting information from outside companies.
what's 7-1 last?
This is the one I'm looking at right now.
Okay.
It said, review the data collected to this point concerning the requirements upon which the RFP will be based.
Damn.
Use this document as a guide to the form an RFP generally can take. This is use a link to the sample request for information. This is not a template per se, but is useful. It says using the data collected concerning requirements as well as boilerplate information such as the name of the company, its addresses, computing environment, blah blah blah. Write an RFP. There is no set length for this document, but you can see from the sample output above, RFPs tend to be long. On the other hand, much of the material is boilerplate.
But what kind of RFP would reach from the CEO all the way down to the HR person? Or
This company is putting an RFP out with this name on it. So you have to be sure that all the information that is in the RFP is accurate. Budget, man hours, planning for training, stuff like that.
You're talking about a small
So
company.
who's writing the RFP? The company or the outside?
Well, the person is writing the RFP, like us. I mean, we're all, you know,
I see what he's saying.
as one particular
Somebody,
employee.
they want, to go move to enterprise architecture. So a lot of this research has been done by this outside consulting company, and we have it, which is all those other projects we did.
Not
It's all that
necessarily.
research.
So
Now
basically,
we need to send a request for proposal to the company, what we need to do, and now they're interviewing us
well,
to see what we want before they do it. Is that right?
No.
Fulfill
No.
their requirements.
No.
Here's what happened. Okay, semi-retired old guy owns this company. He went to a seminar and saw, oh man, all these small companies about the size of mine are doing all this great stuff with open source enterprise architecture, enterprise resource planning, blah blah blah. I want to put that in my company. So he comes back and talks to his CIO about the feasibility of doing that. The CIO says yes. Let's do it. Let's go forward. I think it'd be a good idea. So then he says, you, Brent, anybody, write an RFP with these guidelines. We're turning around, interviewing the executive committee, and gathering all this information to put into the RFP to make sure that it's accurate before it's sent out to companies that say, okay, we want to put in an enterprise resource planning system, eventually leading to enterprise architecture. And we want to get on that track. What do you have to offer? To many different companies.
so basically, it's an internal employee asking us what we want.
Yeah.
This should be like assignment 712.
Yeah. Because it looks
It
like
seems like this is in the
712.
wrong order. Like this should happen before anybody starts doing it.
Well, yeah, the assignments don't necessarily relate to each other because the first one is about that Toledo
I hate
company.
it when they do that.
Exactly.
And then it's like 712.
series of assignments. They should all
They should
have
be
something to
Which
do
is,
with
related,
each other.
yeah.
which is where we got the idea from, because it initially started off as
Yeah,
an outside contractor.
here's an RFP, like respond to it.
Exactly.
Now we've
So
got this one mindset, now it's 712, and the rest take a
I
totally
was
different
So
turn.
based on that, I was under the impression that the RFP was already out.
Right.
We're all outside contractors asking questions about the RFP and
I know.
to be able to respond to
That's
it
initially,
appropriately.
and I started playing with that tool, and it's useless, whatever perspective you're taking. I got one answer. I got one answer that kind of made, like I said, made me shift my focus to like, okay, well, what kind of stance are we taking? So then I started asking questions about, okay, what is our budget? What is our time constraints? And nobody, the thing doesn't work. It's busted. But anyhow,
Yeah, I know, I asked it a
take it
thousand
the way
questions.
the
Yeah,
syllabus
it's stupid.
does it, or do we just want to
Somebody started calling
go
me the
with the
finance
assumption
thing.
that we were saying?
I'll have none of that, sir.
So to make it worse, it used to be what you said.
I don't know. The first assignment was what he said because it's
and you used to take that first assignment,
whatever.
and write
I
the
don't know.
RFP.
But
That's
the
what all
first
the samples
assignment,
were about.
it gives you an example and it says respond to it or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't remember exactly
yeah.
what it is. But then 712 takes a totally different turn, gives you the gadget stuff,
Okay.
and I forget the first.
Yeah, because the gadget thing's all new
Then,
to us.
then you start filling in
Yeah.
the templates. What we were talking about.
So how many of you did Brent convince?
Oh, you're killing me,
That's
guys.
all of them.
You know what? Let's fire questions at us. Let's get some points for this.
Does it, I mean,
Just a good
from
discussion.
your aspect of it,
Yeah.
does it, I don't
I
know.
withdraw my question again.
What way do you format?
I don't even
is
know what to
most
do for the last
beneficial?
part
Why don't we
now.
just
I'm
run
going
with that?
Whoa, one at a time. I'm not hearing anybody. Dave?
Kind of what I was getting at was what Mark was saying, is which side is going to be more beneficial?
And more realistic at the same time. And
I think-
let's just run with that.
I think, in honesty, I mean, if you just take a step back and listen to what I said, I think it makes it easier to internalize and make sense of, rather than being some abstract, you're out some outside company. Well, what the hell am I supposed to put for this and this template and all that? If you imagine yourself, okay, I'm part of this company, so yeah, I guess within the constraints of the gadgeteer, information, make it a little easier to fill out the templates. And
But
I
I've
think it
never
gives you
seen a
more
company where the
focus.
employees would be questioning the executive committee like this.
Oh, I've done
Yeah.
I've done a
unless
million of
it's
them.
a
Yeah, it would-
shareholder meeting, yeah, but.
No, I've
It's-
done a million of them.
it's
That's
in their best
exactly
interest.
what you do.
In project,
make sure we're-
project meetings, yeah, I mean.
Yes, we need to have accurate information.
I'll give you guys a hint. The most frequent answer from guys in your role is ask Wes. He's my expert on that. That's, you know what?
Ask Wes.
Yeah.
He's my expert.
You know what? Let's just make this real quick and easy. Ask
There you
Wes.
Kumar, that's what happens. You get the big guys in the room, you ask them the tough questions, and they say, Wes is my expert, or who she's my expert, or, you know, talk to them. And then you've really got Wes's attention for a brief period of time.
Well, I mean, if you don't have them all in the room, and I've done the individual, you get nothing accomplished because then it's
Yes.
They blame each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll pass the buck. He'll say, well, you really ought to talk to Kumar about that one. That's a, you know.
I don't have the authority, but he has the authority.
Yes.
Which is, that tool did that a lot too.
Yeah.
It said, pass ask such and such a CIO about that. It's a useless tool. It really is. It's,
All right, so let's.
Pretty cool.
All right, so
Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
moving on.
I think he's right, because even if you look at the layers of
Where would we be
the
without
way
Brent?
what?
Where would we be?
We'd be done with all this shit if it wasn't for me.
So if these guys up in front
Bastard.
are the, if these guys are the leadership of the
I gotta go to the
company,
bathroom.
and we're going to publish this RFP to the world, what do we want in it? That's what we're working on.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Information. What do we want?
So
So you're going to ask us informational questions about what the RFP and the limits of what you want in it, or what we want in it,
Yeah.
and what we don't want.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah.
What's the product again?
It's an enterprise resource planning
Basic
tool, which puts us on track to implement enterprise architecture in the future.
Oh, that's
All EA, what am I looking for?
It's like an
Ideas
SAP.
and things like that. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
all right. So if you got
So it's putting us on the EA track.
if you got 1 million customers, you don't want to be saving the information that you have on those 1 million customers in 10 different places. You want a common customer data repository.
Do you remember what you did in 310? Practical application.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So are you guys comfortable with questions for these guys now?
Yes.
All right.
I think so.
So let's.
I mean, we could probably come up with some ones on the fly too,
All right. So let's do this.
based on what.
Don't all talk at once.
Volunteers.
See, okay. How to get quiet in a room?
Okay.
Let's do this.
I got one. I got one.
Okay, Brent.
Let's see where we can. Let's get. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. CIO. Now there was talk in the initial information about going open source to save money. Going open source route, basically free route. If we were not to do that, I mean, what would be the budget if we were not to do that?
I mean, you're going open source. The software itself may be free, but you need to have somebody on in staff to develop it. So by not going open source, you're using mainstream technology. So, I don't know, I guess
Which may have some type of support built into the price.
absolutely, absolutely. So going open source, like I said, it's gonna your software is gonna be free, but your manpower to do it is not. So therefore, you're either going to have to redistribute people within the organization, or bring in people new to handle it. Go ahead.
Dave,
Yes.
so there was talk about with all the different products that the company has, there would be a type of universal, like an open ID that you wouldn't have to, like if you're using one application, you have this login versus this application. What are your thoughts on using something of that nature rather than for each application, an individual has to go through a registration process?
My history on that I've seen is that if you have more than a few logins that are different for different applications, you're basically going to, your security is going to be voided anyways, because what are people going to do? They're going to write that information down on a piece of paper, put it on a Post-it, things like that. I think it's easier on the people themselves to have a unified login across all of the software applications, or at least one or two, depending on what the structure of that application is. So,
wouldn't the easiest to be a biometrics?
okay. There are some drawbacks with that as well. I mean, I just played devil's advocate, but you do have the majority. I don't want to say majority. You do have individuals that just flat out won't scan. So.
Wait, what do you mean? Like they choose not to scan?
No. Well, they either choose not to scan, or I know some individuals that, regardless of the scanner, it just will not pick up their fingerprint. So
either ocular or
well,
hand.
but to fix that, there is a random number generator that they carry around, just like a key fob. So whenever they need to log in, they type in that information. That number changes on a schedule, whatever the case may be.
Wouldn't that be easier because we're going to eliminate costs in terms of tech support of having to reset the fobs constantly.
But you're also adding another layer to it of additional hardware that could
Very
break.
expensive.
It's actually very complicated.
Yeah,
Biometrics are very hard to support.
they're very hard. If they break, you're basically telling that person, well, until we get it fixed, we can't do it.
Not to mention having a company as small as this, and what we do, and the level of security, I think we need something simple that's just like an LDAP kind of system. That's all we need. We would never need any security or anything higher than that. I don't think.
Did that answer your question?
Yes. Charles and Kumar, from a manager, from an HR and a CEO perspective, I take that back. I have to rethink that.
Were you getting this game on your shirt?
Black. Did anybody see what it says on there?
What does it say?
Fix your own bleeping computer.
That might be HR. Shut up and reboot, huh?
Who's the COO?
Yeah, further term.
Who's the coup? Sorry, Mr. Coup.
Wait. Coup sounds like something. Are you trying to overthrow the rest of us?
Never. You guys are cool.
You have approximately 50 people working on in the manufacturing facility on the line. Are you confident that they could use simple login LDAP system to access files and things that they would need?
Well, depending on their position on the manufacturing line, if they're ever actually going to touch it.
So are we looking at some type of set, like, okay, this workstation has, you do this step, whatever, if they're manufacturing different pieces?
Well, in my case, if they're machining pieces, then chances are they're not going to need probably even so much as a login to get into any kind of internal computer system, just because they're machining parts, But of course, supervisors for the machinists and things of that nature, they're going to need that kind of thing. But yeah,
won't they need a login to do like time cards and time reporting?
Not necessarily. I mean, stuff like that you can get. You can have like basically a terminal that everybody goes to log into. Or everybody goes to and enters their name and they've been given a password for the purpose of clocking in and out, just to have a nice record that's a lot easier to use than the old-fashioned time card system. And then in that case, it'd just be one everybody go to.
Would they need one for their benefits? I mean, re-enrollment and stuff like that at the end of the year?
Well, if their benefits would probably be handled through another company, and then they could just go to that company.
Is that the way HR wants to?
I don't know.
I would prefer to have it in-house, but we have to look at the numbers on that. Before we can,
Wes is the expert.
Come in.
Nice.
Wes, we need a report.
Now, with this system, back to the coop, Mr. Coop. With this system, do you want to give the foreman, you say like maybe the workers direct supervisors, access to the system? Say a particular piece of automation isn't working properly, would you like even access to it to fix it themselves, or would they have to?
I think that's the way it would work is the supervisors or whoever's in charge of X and X department would have their own, at least some sort of workstation they could go to report incidents, report things to HR, such as, excessive tardinesses or whatever they need to report. And then of course something that they can send off to, if there's an issue with a computer or a machine, that can go to the appropriate department, say IT or maintenance or whoever, and they'd have their own. And then if anybody underneath them that runs into one of these issues would obviously have to be directly, have to go directly to their superior, whoever that may be, a supervisor or foreman or whatnot, and say X and X is broken, and that'll be taken care of in a timely fashion. And it would be good to have, some sort of place that each of these supervisors could go to where they have a station they can sit at and do all their reports and everything at the end of each day.
It's not going to cost anything additional
Just to have
these
here.
Doesn't look
usernames
like
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
You just have a general
They have-
workstation.
That's in
They
place
have
now.
limited, of course they have limited access to only the tools that they need. It would also make implementing new tools for them easier if we did have some sort of centralized system like that, because then they can be deployed by his people, the IT people.
Is that a derogatory?
What do you mean, you people?
Your people. Once again, Wes is the expert.
You guys are too
Wes,
smart.
we have a lot of questions for
I don't get paid enough.
Nice.
They can't all use you as the
That's
expert, Wes.
Hey, Wes, who she said he'd do it for less.
Oh,
Yeah, keep that in mind, buddy.
nice.
I'm looking for some pink paper right now.
So, are we budgeting for new equipment or only as necessary? Are we going to
Well-
keep our existing equipment, update software, stuff like that?
I think as far as since we're going towards enterprise architecture is going to be mostly on the kind of like administration. Machining will be done as necessary. Products change, technology changes there. That'll change. Really, as far as the labor force goes in the company, not a lot is going to change. Would change on their end so much right away, and it would be more over the course of time. More is going to change on the administration and the IT level. Operations will kind of, as changes are made there that affect them, they'll be dealt with.
There will be changes, though. I mean, within the architecture, there are things that are going to need to be replaced, and I would imagine that as part of the discovery process on the RFP, that there will be recommendations on what also needs to be done that we aren't thinking.
Yeah, there's always those variables. that you have to.
So we're going to be looking for that.
Sorry.
Sure. I thought he knew everything.
Okay, so if we're gonna be installing new machines and new technology throughout the organization, the IT department, do they have the knowledge to administer all this? Or we're gonna have to hire outside to hire, so I guess it would be maybe CFO and HR
CFO and HR.
to hire new employees.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I don't know. We're not really.
Are you gonna have somebody maybe on
To
the
be honest,
outside?
the whole point of the ERP is to be able to simplify things. So adding people kind of, by doing this ERP, we should be able to minimize the work.
Okay, yeah.
Not an
If
issue.
you minimize, what would you get rid of?
Well, initially, there's going to be a learning curve when you're going in with a new system, especially with something as complex as an ERP. We're going to initially need to spend some money on getting consultants in to help with training and help with customizing the system. But in the long term, we'll wean ourselves off of those people and end our contracts as necessary.
The idea, though, is not to bring on full-time staff. Maybe some part-time staff initially to help,
Or contractors.
but by putting in the ERP and simplifying our operations, be able to free up the IT department to not necessarily remove staff, but free them up to be able to do other things.
And as far as on the operations level, fixing things like machines and stuff that are used on a regular basis, most of that we
push rooms too.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain stuff that, you know, they do, but a lot of, when it comes to, like, especially very complex machines for, like, machining, like, steel and stuff like that, we'd probably have the vendor of the machine, you know, come in and do routine maintenance to keep it up to spec. And just because as opposed to training somebody to fix a machine that we may have a problem with once every 6 or 7 months, it's a lot easier to have that guy come in that one time for every 6 months and do that maintenance. Who's the expert who can get it done fast?
So you're gonna pay for those warranties?
What
We have a budget to pay for those warranties.
Pay for
And
the
you
what?
buy millions of dollars worth of machines.
The warranties and upkeep. Because those can be expensive.
I think the warranties make sense simply because if you've made the initial investment, what's the point in letting the device simply just deteriorate?
$1 million machines, you're gonna get the warranty.
We obviously have to keep availability real high. I mean, if we're going to put that kind of money into it, availability needs to be always high. So the warranties are absolutely necessary.
Mitch needs a question.
CFO.
CFO. He's got to figure out how to pay for it.
Answering all these finance questions.
Yes.
Not necessarily. I have to go to them for those questions.
All right, so,
Have approval to answer this question?
so Mr. CIO, do we plan to house this new technology, or do we plan on supporting this technology in-house, or are we going to pay for software as a service?
Can you ask me a simple question?
Wes is the expert.
I think my personal opinion would be to bring it in-house. But you do have your drawbacks with that. Software as a service, depending on the agreement, you've got the ability for updates and to keep moving with the curve. You know, wherever that package that we've moved, decide to go with, wherever it goes, we would have the ability to move with it. Bringing it all in-house, purchasing it, and doing it that way. Software agreements would be able to get you there, but there's always loopholes where you've got your major updates, or you've got this. Well, that's not included.
We have the data center space to buy the systems required.
It doesn't say.
I wouldn't call
There's
it
a closet in the break room nobody's using.
We've got 3 servers.
To be honest, I mean, a lot of this stuff, and it also depends on the utilization of it. The majority of this stuff can be virtualized. So we are not running a virtualized environment currently. So by moving to this, we should be able to stay within our means. And if we need to, we've got some additional secondary closets that aren't being utilized.
We can always use Wes's office.
He's not in there anyways. He's doing it.
Yeah. He's busy running around being the expert.
Matt, what's your uptime requirement for this new technology?
175%. I just hope the changes don't negatively impact production down, at least at the operations level, especially during beginning stages.
So you're looking for 24-hour uptime.
Well, we don't operate 24 hours, so. Do we operate 24 hours?
See, now that's how a C level.
The ERP system itself, you know, will stay up, 99.999% of the time. There are redundancies in place to be able to handle hardware failures and things of that nature. If there is a problem that occurs overnight, is it going to affect us since we're not a 24-hour operation? No, but it will be handled before it started business.
Wes is on call.
Mitch, what's the proposed budget for this project?
Considering after we get the RFPs back and look at the companies that give us the information, if they can give us an idea of what it would cost, we're looking at it from $1 million to $1.5 million. That information was from the last one.
I need some clarification. Any other questions?
That what time frame is that over that budget? Is that say like a $500,000 initial investment over the next 2 years would be
From the beginning period of them gathering information to the implementation of the ERP.
so until the last subcontractor leaves the building?
Additional information.
This project is slated to be done within 2 months of the contract signed. It's a very aggressive time frame, to say the least.
I guess.
Implementation is until 6 months.
I apologize, I misread. So 6 months, which is still an aggressive time frame.
So this dollar amount is just for that 6 month period. So in that 6 month period, we're going to be running with our existing personnel, maybe one extra full timer in the IT department for support purposes.
We'll have to get together and completely come up with the numbers on everything before we can answer that question.
That's a C-level answer.
I'm going to need that information before I continue with this assignment.
Get it from Wes.
Okay. I just want to make sure, I may not have heard the last part of what he had said, but does the budget itself, does it cover anything that could hinder the project itself? I mean, if it's for 6 months, for example, and let's say there's like a flood or a natural disaster, something that's like beyond our control, does the money cover if, you know, let's say there's like 4 steps to it, but then we only get to step 2, but then we're back to step 1.
Well, and once it gets so far, we're only looking for a contract to set this enterprise architecture up and the ERP up and have it running. Whatever we agreed to with whatever company comes to us with a decent proposal, we'll take that and whatever happens, happens, but the time frame is set when we need this done.
Any money for problems is going to come out of the employee pizza party fund. We'll win it.
That was his only benefit.
Wes is on.
He doesn't get health care, he just gets pizza.
And a lot of work.
Is there any other benefit you're cutting?
Air conditioning now.
Assignment 716.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know you have to get approval on that from the benefits chairman back there.
Oh. Principal stockholder.
Based on from what I've seen on the budget in regards to the project, is that you know, there's got to be goals met at each stage of the project before funds will be released. There's certain things, you know, once if they don't meet a goal, they don't get paid for it. It's simple as that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's one of the advantages of hiring an outside company.
Exactly.
They have a contract, and they have an obligation.
They
Now,
hold their feet to the flame.
there's
So
such a thing as that's called substantial completion.
That's going to be part of the contract then?
I would definitely.
You don't have
imagine.
this done by this date, then
Yeah, I mean,
We have
there's
a problem.
however many stages, and I don't recall if that aspect of it has been known out as of yet. But from what I've seen, that there will be, you know, some type of goal set before payments. That way, we're protecting ourselves from a rental contract.
Okay, so another kind of little higher level question. Would we prefer to go with an open source solution, or would we prefer to go with more like a package deal?
it say
open source?
Does it say the requirements? Because to be honest, I mean, open source will give you what, as long as it's developed properly, you'll get exactly what you're looking for. If you go with a box unit, you know, something, so to speak, off the shelf, you are going to have to compromise on certain areas to be able to get
I think that's why we picked open source.
to get what you want.
Because
So,
then his developers can create tools specific to our needs. Like, say, I need a tool for, you know, keeping track of calibration and maintenance records for machine XYZ up here. His developers can put something together in that without the limitations of.
Would
we
there
can
be a
use our
difference
existing-
level in security in terms of open source and closed source?
No.
it depends on how it's developed. If it's developed in a you know, way that's security centric, then I would
From the
imagine not.
ground down?
I mean, the majority of this will be within our site. To the best of my knowledge, there's only going to be very limited access from the outside. So,
My people were very limited access.
not to say that that makes it any more secure, but it does take a certain element
Charles,
Yes.
from the HR perspective, we currently have one part-time trainer on staff.
He's out here.
Corrections.
Do you expect our trainer to train the workforce on how to use this new tool, or are we hiring trainers, or do we expect that to come from the contract?
Actually, what I was going to talk to the CIO about was trying to set up a automated computer-based training module to kind of implement or help implement some of the procedures or some of the changes that would be up to you periodically when we go with the open source system. So it's yet to be determined. Her role may be switching, or that person's role may be switching. From, you know, now we have her just mainly dealing with HR issues, time card up, you know, HR policies and procedures. So not really training new hires.
Okay.
There's 3 pages of
Nothing.
exactly. Yeah. So
Pages.
haven't heard much back from the back 40.
It's all been covered.
Yeah. Well, there's not a whole lot of information here.
Yeah. No, within the next 2 years, we're replacing everybody in operations with robots. So I just want to make that clear.
Wait.
Actually, cyborgs. We're going to take the existing employees.
Are they the Japanese dancing robots, or are they?
We're replacing with the Borg. The Borg is actually going to come in.
The collective?
Yes.
They are efficient.
They are very efficient. I've seen
Not
it.
so much replacing them as assimilating them.
We are all geeks.
There's a Borg cube on its way here right now. Be here about 6 years, so.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah, you know, I am way past my cocktail. Sorry, Wes. You've got a lot of stuff.
Actually, take the message anyway.
I would want to go out too.
Actually, what would happen?